thwacked. Here we are Friday. The market is recovering. What's going on? It's quadruple witching. The Fed, much more hawkish, totally new regime. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Iran deal, and we're going to continue to have our conversation around SpaceX. It's going to be an action-packed show today. So, Amin, let's roll credits. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to my friends across the pond. I'm Mark Sebastian, and this is the State of the Market Show. If you're watching me on YouTube or X, please give me a like and subscribe, or give me that heart on X. And better yet, shoot us an email, support@optionpit.com, and join the conversation live. So yesterday, we had our first meeting with new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh. And if you like committees, then this was your meeting, because we got a lot of committees, but we didn't get a lot of answered, and the market didn't like it. We saw markets get absolutely thwacked. The S&P closed down over 90. The Dow closed down over 500. Russell down. The NASDAQ down. The only saving grace for the market was SMH, which managed to close the day near the lows, but still higher. And this morning is getting a big pop again. Folks, what is going on in SMH is unprecedented. This is an ETF that carries a large basket of stocks. SMH is NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor, Micron, AMD, Intel, Broadcom, Lam Research, KLA Tencor, Applied Materials, Texas Instruments. These are massive names, right? Among those names, between NVIDIA, Taiwan, Micron, AMD, Intel, and Broadcom, I've gotten us to almost $10 trillion in market cap. Folks, I want you to think about this. SMH is moving on a daily basis $28.85. That is almost 5% a day. 28.85 divided by yesterday's closing price, it was $6.25. We're moving 4.6% a day. That is a volatility of 73%. On an annualized basis, the largest sector of the S&P 500 is moving at a 73% annualized volatility. That is incredibly high. And, you know, that to me is kind of like a warning sign. You're getting a lot of volatility in heavy market cap. SMH is essentially, at any given time, there's like one ETF that you need to be watching. One name. That name right now is SMH, or you could look at the SOX index on the Philly. As we open today, the S&P is up about 0.8%. You're getting 2% out of the NASDAQ, and that's because SMH is up 5%. Dow up about 0.25%. Small caps, the Russell 2000 up about 0.6%. So the leadership today is all chips. This is a chip-driven rally. VIX off about 1.15%. Oil is down another $3, trading $73. Probably getting to the point of oversold. In fact, certainly getting the point of oversold. And we're going to be talking about that over the weekend. I write a 4-hour State of the Market show on Monday. I said, hey, I think you want to short XLE this week. That has worked out. And I said, I want it to go down so that I can buy it. We're starting to get to my level. We are starting to get to my level where I'm getting really interested in this one. It is quadruple witching. So what that means is that S&P options, S&P futures, S&P futures options, and equity options all expire today. It is into the trillions of dollars of notional value that is disappearing. It opens up air pockets, and it allows for a lot more volatility today and then into next week because there's a lot less positioning. Now, a lot of it's been rolled out to September, but September is not going to have the same kind of gamma effects that June had. And gamma, for those of you wondering, is exposure to market movement. When there's a lot of gamma in the market, moves get exasperated. That means a small move becomes bigger and a big move becomes huge. And with that out of the way, we could, into next week, if we're relatively stable, see things stay really stable. However, because, again, there's a lot less positioning, if we do start to make a move, the market is going to be a little less prepared for that. And there's going to be less kind of cheapy downside stuff owned by the market. So if we do get some sort of rollover, it could be a little bit harder having just gotten through quadruple witching. So that's just something to keep in mind. So there is kind of your market overview. Again, we're up, probably stay up. It's not great to bet against the market, but the S&P still below 7,500. That's going to be the level to see where to watch, see whether we are able to hold. I would also be very careful after these big sell-offs. We've seen the market come out of the gate very strong and then roll over. All right. Amin is my guest here.
Yes, Mark.
All right. Let's bring him in. Good morning, Hans. It is Hans Albrecht, our head of income trading here at Option Pit. Hans, it has been a week, to say the least. We had the Federal Reserve come out yesterday, and Warsh is running a very different Fed at onset than any of the previous three Fed governors, right? He wants to say less. Their statement was about 35% the size of the previous statement. He wants to get rid of forecasting. Hey, if you like committees, Hans, he's got a committee for you. A task force, if you will. Just a very different attitude, and markets didn't like it at all. He was very hawkish near term. What were your takeaways of that meeting, and what do you think are the ripple effects of it in the market going forward?
I think this is a bit of a setup. I think, he may have, I don't know this for a fact, but a conversation with Trump might have gone along the lines of, listen, I want to come out, put the right step forward, put the right foot forward. I want to be cautious. I want to do what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's going to be based on the inflationary pressures, which are very real. But unlike what happened in 2020, 2021, it could be a more transitory inflationary influence. And we know AI can be deflationary in many ways. It's going to be probably inflationary in some of the inputs that are required for it. Although you can see commodities have really been kind of crushed, and we don't see silver really getting off the mat. Copper hasn't been sort of falling through as strongly. So I think it's an instance of, hey, let's come out with credibility. Let's, guns a-blazing. But the sort of quiet commentary, I believe, behind the scenes is, listen, this isn't going to be a big deal. We're going to have the ammunition to basically, ease at some point. And so I think it's not theater. I think it's real. I think he does have to deal with the current situation, the higher sticky inflation. But I think it's kind of, there's an out. In poker, you say, well, you've got a few outs. I think there's a relatively easy out here.
Yeah, you've got this. We're about to enter this weird conversation in terms of the consumer is going to feel very rich, right? Especially if they're holding NASDAQ stocks, especially that top 10%. But on the other end, you're going to see energy prices are crashing. WTI is down to $73 a barrel already, probably the point of oversold. As it stands right now, going out to December, the Fed Fund futures have only a 15.8% chance that there's no rate hike by the end of the year. And they're now over 50%. No, I'm sorry. They're now just under 50% that there's going to be a second rate hike this year. That October meeting is now 75% odds that we're going to have a rate hike. It's pretty interesting, and I'm with you. I'm not so sure that there will be a hike, especially if we see CPI and PCE start to really pull back with energy and falling commodity prices come September. But he came out guns a-blazing yesterday.
For sure. And you know what? Investors are really being taken for a ride this year because we really started the year with the complete opposite, which was, hey, we're going to get cuts. And so, portfolios positioned for that. And then Iran happened. And we've sort of been, kind of pushed around a little bit by geopolitics and the expectations really shifting very much. And so this plays into everything, right? So the AI build out is very sort of CapEx heavy in a sense, right? It requires energy, it requires oil. So this could be good for the build out in a sense. And so I think, we've seen, the semiconductors keep going, data centers are going to keep getting built. Now we're going to build them in space. There's a lot of real estate out there where we can build data centers. So I think, I've been talking about for a few weeks, the shift is going to be into some of those build out type themes a little bit. And I think apart from semiconductors, technology is now really not acting very well. If it really is becoming almost the most narrow technology rally, we see mag stocks really not doing very well. And it really is all about the semiconductor trade, which makes me a little bit nervous. You and Garrett talked about it this morning. A lot of, for example, Mark, if you look at what's happening in the memory space, no question, it's the insatiable compute, but it's a lot of pricing power, right? So is Micron a better bet than a very vertically integrated ecosystem like a Google has? I don't think so. So I think this is predicated on, I think that's a little bit more fragile than people think. Demand is there. There's no question about it. Doing well because they're raising prices and people will pay anything for this stuff. That can last a little while. But I think as compute costs come down, which we can talk about in a moment, that's actually going to benefit the rest of the world, and I think that's why we're continuing to see some broadening happen as well. So you look at the IWM, things like that.
Well, I wanted to talk energy now, but let's then chips, but let's dive into chips. Hans, I was commenting this. SMH is NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor, Micron, AMD, and Intel, and Broadcom. All right. And then Lam and KLA, Applied Materials, Texas Instruments. But, NVIDIA is $5 trillion. Taiwan Semiconductor is like $1.5 trillion. Micron's $1 trillion, right? We're at $7.5 trillion. AMD and Intel combined $1.25 trillion, $8.75 trillion. And now you add in Broadcom, you're over $10 trillion in market cap among the names that it holds. It's moving at a 73% volatility.
Right.
73%. Folks, that's like, let me put this in perspective, all right? Snapchat moves at a 60%. Snapchat. All right. Groupon.
Groupon, they're still around?
Yeah, they're still around. That's 80%. I mean, it's moving basically at like a super, I'll bet you GameStop is lower than, GameStop is 36. This is moving like a meme in some ways. There's an insatiable demand. There's fundamentals behind it, but there's momentum behind it as well. Hans, how are you weighing this like it's a complete meme Momo play versus there's an actual story here and an actual build out and actual fundamental values here? How are you navigating those two?
Well, and that's the tough part, Mark, right? So this is Captain Obvious saying here, this is the tough part because there is this nonstop insatiable compute that you and I have been talking about for a year now, and that there's the very real that's the reality of what's happening. Boots on the ground is we need more of this stuff, and we're going to hit physical bottlenecks, and that chips are physical, right? So now on the other hand, pretty good reports out talking about how there are a lot of GPUs just kind of sitting there. They're not really being put to use. I think there's a lot of ordering going on in order to, kind of the pantry stuffing, right? Like COVID, you got to stuff that pantry with toilet paper. What if they don't sell any more toilet paper? What the heck are we going to do? We're going to have to all buy bidets or something like that. Well, people are stuffing the pantry with chips and memory and everything. So how much demand is being pulled forward? So for me, to your question specifically, it makes me a little bit nervous at this point because we're starting to also see a little bit more chit chat, and I'm digging into it for Turbo Income members. A little bit more chit chat about, the efficiency of the open source models, the free models that are out there. And in my view, eventually the models kind of converge a little bit and become not interchangeable exactly. There'll always be somebody who has a little bit slightly different flavor than another. And you're seeing Microsoft, a company with all the money, more money than God, and they, they're basically saying, listen, we're going to move to some Chinese models, some different models. People are going to be pushing back against the cost of OpenAI, of GPT, of Anthropic. I think that makes those companies a very, very difficult IPO at some point. If they don't IPO soon, I'm trying to figure out how they kind of navigate the space because they're already losing boatloads of money, and now they're going to compete on price and cut costs, and it's going to make things even worse for them. And everybody can kind of go to a cheap free model that's actually good enough. I call it good enough. Is it going to be good enough for NASA and Elon? Well, no, but it's for most uses. Some of the free stuff and very, very cheap stuff is going to be good enough. How does that play into this when we start to see a little bit more of that sort of unfold? How does that play into the chip makers? And I think this is rather fragile at this point. Personally, I would not be long the semiconductors here, and I think there is the potential for a little bit of unraveling that I think eventually benefits everybody else and even the hyperscalers, because the value isn't going to be in selling AI, right? You're not going to make money selling. You can't charge people $10,000 a month. They'll be happy to pay $200 a month because they get to use $5,000 worth of tokens. That's how things are built right now. They get to lose tons of money and you get to benefit from that. So it's a fragile situation. I wonder how that's going to play out, but eventually it's good for the ecosystem people because cheap compute is going to benefit the rest of the world.
Now, folks, what Hans just said, I'm sure you just got fed a fire hose. Hans is going to put out a note kind of breaking this down for everybody over the next couple of days. I want you to be on the lookout. If you're not a subscriber to Hans's letter, make sure you're changing that because what he basically said is we're at a major crossroad for AI in terms of compute. And he's going to break that down, and you're going to want to read that. Hans, we are running up against it, but I want to ask you one quick question. I think we're getting at a spot where it's time to start looking at energy plays, especially on oil. XLE has taken the drop that I was kind of looking for. Are you starting to get in? And obviously you're Canadian, so you're big on energy. What are you starting to look at some of these energy plays? And if not, what price level are you looking for on a name like XLE?
I am. I think they're looking very interesting. I think they're going to overdo it here. And I do like something like the oil services, the OIH. We can see that's kind of starting to fall off a cliff a little bit here, but I like it down around that 373, 375 level. And I think that we can start to get a little bit constructive because as we know, as traders, they overdo things to the upside and they overdo things to the downside. And I think the build out theme is still very much intact, even though I believe Elon's going to start to be a part of what you just mentioned, which is the disruptive nature of what's happening. Garrett mentioned it earlier. I remember he said something that struck me. He said, something's going on. And so I think you want to keep that sort of vague phrase in the back of your minds, traders, is that something is going on here. Things are changing on a very rapid clip. The winner, what you think is the absolutely unassailable winner right now may not be in a month from now. So stay on your toes because this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I like the SLB, the largest component of OAH, is getting smoked today. I think it's starting to look like a very, very interesting investment. That's one I'm going to be looking to sell puts or buy leap calls or probably both here in the next couple of days. Hans, thank you very much. We're folks, I want you to stick around. Starting right now, I'm going to bring on Hannah and Leisha, and we're going to dig right back into the SpaceX trade. Hans, I know you've been trading SpaceX as well. I know you've been enjoying it. Hans is going to have a little note about what he did in SpaceX. That will be this weekend that you can be on the lookout for. Hans, thank you very much for your insight and everything you bring and keeping us in the loop on where AI is going. Folks, head of income trading, Hans Albrecht. All right.
Thanks, Mark.
So, folks, make sure we're starting right now. I'm going to bring on Hannah. I'm bringing on Leisha, and we're going to come back and we're going to dig right back into SpaceX. It continues to be the story for the market. It is a launch like we've never seen, and we're going to continue to follow along with this for as long as this is the lead story and swallowing all the air in the market. So with that, let's bring on Hannah Selner and Leisha Leslie, our queen of the candlesticks. I just call her queen. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
All right.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. It's been a whirlwind this morning. Obviously, I'd like it more if SpaceX was up $20, but we're ready to talk about it and dig in. So let's
go through it. I have if you can show my screen right now, I'm going to show you guys. If you made yesterday's trade, here it is. If you didn't make yesterday's trade, this is what we ended up putting on. Quick recap on something we covered yesterday. Instead of just buying an upside call, which because of IV crush and some of the reasons we walked through yesterday is really swimming against the current, we put on an upside call spread. You can see the trade that was released right here on your screen. And if we look at how SpaceX is trading this morning, I'm going to flip over to the chart. The stock target that we were looking for this call spread to hit, it was $206. Obviously, SpaceX is trading well below that this morning. I want to recap with everyone the decisions that led to setting up this trade, why we did the call spread instead of a put spread. And then we'll walk through what SpaceX looks like today. I'm seeing some great questions in the chat about, is the panic to buy SpaceX over? I want to talk about how the Fed meeting yesterday maybe affected the direction of SpaceX. We'll look at what the market's doing today. And then Mark also mentioned that quad witching is today, which is the expiration of 4 different types of options all together in a single day. It's a little weird because quad witching normally happens on a Friday. Obviously, the market's closed tomorrow, so this is today instead. So let's look at SpaceX. I want to go back to the last few days, and SpaceX options started trading on Tuesday. You can see kind of the action here. This was around the middle of day on Tuesday. Can everyone see this okay? I'll zoom in a little bit. So this was the first day of trading. Now, at the end of that day, we had a gap up to go into Wednesday. Here was Wednesday. At the end of Wednesday, we had a gap up into yesterday. Or I might be missing a day here. But anyway, there's a gap up here. And these aren't small gap ups either. Look at this one. It went from, at the end of the day, 192 all the way up to 200 the next morning. Here's another example. This was going into yesterday. This is into today here. We did have, I'm getting confused on these charts. Hold on. I'm trying to move from one to the next to the next. Here's what I want you to notice. Gap up. Gap up. Gap up. And then this morning, we got our first gap down. Which can happen. Exactly. Yeah. So yesterday when we walked through this, we talked about the way that SpaceX has been behaving so far, the rushes that we've seen in the morning when it comes to upside push in those orders. And we just didn't get that this morning. What else are you guys seeing, Mark and Leisha, here? And I assume that we're out of this trade. Did we close this? Since it's now a 0 DTE, it expires today.
It does expire today. The 200 calls are worth about 15 cents. The 215s are worth nothing. Generally speaking, for me, when I have a spread like this and we still have 5 hours left in the day, my options are I can take the $10 left in the spread, right, which will buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or I can allow this to sit. And we saw SpaceX gap up and then roll over. Who's to say midday it doesn't start to run hot again and we end the day? So my general take is, and this is the very market maker in me. When I was short options, meaning I had been a net seller of options, and they got down to 10 cents or more, I always bought them back. But when I owned options that were 10 cents, I always hung on to them. And probably one of my 5 greatest trades, which happened to take place in ELN, was because of this model. I had sold a bunch of out of the money puts that were worth, at this point, 10 cents or a nickel. And on a Tuesday, I bought them all back. And then I was sitting on some other strikes that were all worth 10 cents. And I didn't close those. I didn't sell them at a nickel to try and bring in an extra $500. And lo and behold, 2 days later, the stock dropped. And on terrible news, they killed some people. It was bad.
Crazier things have happened. That's for sure. If you look at SpaceX movement a couple days ago, it moved $25 in like 90 minutes. So it's possible. Of course, so if you guys are in this trade, whatever you decide to do because of it or because of the information we're sharing with you, your decision. What Mark's saying is he could either take the little bit of money that's still left here and it's not that much, or he could just let it ride through today, which it sounds like is what he's going to be doing. Is it, what's the probability that we get a move from 180 where we're trading right now up to 206, which is our target? Who knows? But we have seen crazier things. So Mark, sounds like you are going to be holding on to this through today.
The probability of that happening is approximately 4%. So
There are some factors that we think might have affected this. So I want to talk through some of those. And then we'll talk about what SpaceX direction looks like today. There was yesterday at 2, we had Warsh's first Fed meeting. You want to talk about what that might have had to do with maybe the way the market moved and SpaceX and how attached SpaceX movement is to the market. I mean, we're still going to look for an opportunity today and what we see, but I do want to finish breaking down some of the other factors yesterday.
Alicia, would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of threw everything for a loop. And the one thing that saved the market yesterday, it was chips, SMH. You know, I've had this conversation now with Garrett and Hans this morning, and it's an important conversation. There is, you know, at any given time, there is a stock or an ETF that is sucking all the air out of the space. That was SpaceX leading into Thursday, or leading into Wednesday. Chips have taken that mantle back, and they are swallowing all the air in the market.
I mean, can you show my screen right now? I'm looking at SMH. Thank you.
SMH, this is the chip ETF. And when you look at its components, and I've said this a few times, its components are NVIDIA, Micron, Taiwan Semiconductor, Intel, AMD, Broadcom, and then a bunch of other massive companies. The top 7 companies in this name have a collective market cap over $10 trillion.
What are some of those names, Mark?
What's that?
What are some of the names inside of SMH, the top 7 you just mentioned?
NVIDIA, Taiwan Semiconductor. So NVIDIA is worth about $5 trillion. Taiwan Semiconductor, about $1.5 trillion, 6.5. Micron, $1 trillion. Now we're at $7.5 trillion. AMD and Intel, about $1.25 trillion. And then you add in Broadcom, another $1.5 trillion. That's $10.25 trillion. And I haven't even gotten into Lam Research, KLA, Tennecore, Texas Instruments, Applied Materials.
Sure.
Like, we're running into the $12-13 trillion by the time we're done with this ETF. Now, that's not the AUM, but that's the names that it is investing in, their values. And they're moving at an average pace of about 5% a day, 4.3% a day.
Can we look at the SMH chart real quick? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just had it up.
Okay. I was going to show you mine, but that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Pull it up.
Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, the SMH had traded, honoring my pitchfork pretty perfectly. Honored the top of the pitchfork Tuesday, major league down day, but came back. This is what you call a harami, negating this bearishness. Today we're getting the confirmation. Looks like it's going to continue to trade higher. That's all.
Okay. Mark, do you think that yesterday and what was talked about in the Fed let's talk a little bit about the effect on the market and if you do think there was an effect at all on the SpaceX trade?
I mean, the market as a whole rolled over. The timing of that trade I initially put it out at 275. By the time that order hit people's emails, they were already paying under $2 or hit their SMS. It was already trading under $2. I ended up paying $1.50 because when we send an order here at Option Pit, we send an order, we wait 5 minutes, and then we fill it ourselves. So by the time that 5 minutes was up, I was paying $1.50 for it. And so it got us in at a better price. But obviously, this was the first day where we didn't get kind of a overnight bullishness out of SpaceX, which had been a pretty consistent trend. And there were fundamental reasons behind it. And for some reason, in that overnight, there's no counter liquidity to people that want to own a stock. So, that's overnight is not the time where you can go out and borrow stock and short it and things like that. Not that there's a lot of SpaceX to borrow. So overnight had been the illiquid time. Overnight had been when longs had been really kind of pressing on SpaceX to rally, and they'd been doing that every night. And based on what we saw with the S&P 500 on Wednesday, that massive selling, in the Qs, I think the people that were pressing that trade, trying to push SpaceX higher overnight so that it gapped open, I think they got a little spooked, and they decided not to buy it overnight.
Let's look here at some of the changes in the options that were traded on SpaceX between day 1 and day 2. On the top of the screen, you'll see day 1. We looked at this yesterday, 482,000 total. You can see the calls on the left, the puts on the right. And then yesterday, we did actually see the volume drop a little bit. It went down to 393. So you can see the actual dollar amounts attached to each of those days. We also saw, on day 1, we looked at the.
Wrong screen, I think.
Yeah, go to my screen, please. Thank you.
That is your screen, Hannah.
It shouldn't be. Oh, one sec. I'm moving around on you. Can you show this? You guys see it now? Okay. So we talked about this yesterday. On the top, you can see the volume from day 1, calls on the left, puts on the right, the total in the middle there. And then below, you can see yesterday. One of the biggest things that we noticed looking at this are the calls and put tilt, that sort of skew on day 1 was a little heavier toward the calls. And then yesterday, it ended up being a little bit more even between the calls traded and the puts traded. Mark, you brought this up, and I think this is important for everyone to know the way that the stock volume is developing as this trades and the options volume is developing, because the options yesterday actually amounted to around 73.3% of the total volume. Can you talk about, kind of break this down and talk about what that means and why it's so important to track the option interest on SpaceX? Yeah,
we're slowly seeing, right as it stands now, the S&P 500 and the triple Q, the options market have now gotten so big, they've become the dog to the veritable stock market's tail. We're starting to see that in SpaceX. With the amount of option volume relative to the amount of stock, options are going to be more what you need to pay attention to in terms of what direction SpaceX is going to move than the stock by probably today. As it stands right now, options are already controlling more shares than SpaceX stock has traded today. We've done about 600,000 contracts in options, which is the equivalent of 60 million shares of SpaceX. Stock volume is 57 million. So we're starting to see options become the leader of where the stock is going to go relative to the stock itself.
Because of that, let's look at what the options are doing right now. It sounds like SpaceX just listed some weeklies. Let's look at the flow and break that down.
Oh, yeah. This is exciting. This is really exciting. They've listed weeklies for, we have June 26th now. We have July 2nd, June 10th, or July 10th, the 24th, and July 31st. So you can now, you don't have to wait till July to put on a play. You can now play every week. And in the next few weeks, they're going to announce adding Tuesday and Thursday to the existing 0DTE names. And then after that, they're going to list new names. SpaceX is going to be one of the, based on the volume that it's showing, SpaceX is going to be in that group, that one of the first names in that next group of stocks that is going to be added for daily options expiration. But as it stands right now, we have the ability to trade weeks versus weeks, announcements versus announcements, all we're going to have a expiration every Friday in SpaceX. I am extremely excited, and we already see huge volumes in these weeklies. For next Fridays, we already have 40,000 contracts that have traded for next week. We've got 7,000 for the following week. That's leading into the 4th of July. 15,000 for July 10th, and regular July is at about 100,000 already today. So
can I talk about the implied vol? Oh, when you're finished.
Sure.
When you're ready. When you're finished.
Go ahead. Let's look at it. Let's look at the implied vol.
So yesterday's implied vol went from a 109 at the opening in July, the regular July 17. An hour later, it was a 97, and then by the end of the day, it was a 91. The stock is down $12. The implied vol is still dropping. Generally, when a stock drops, implied vol goes higher. This implied vol is still very high. $12 is a good size move, though. It's right now an 84, 83, 84 implied vol. So still be careful. If you're out there trading, be sure to use those vertical spreads, flies. Don't buy options straight up. Implied vols are still dropping. They'll find a place, though.
And Hannah, I can confirm the YOLOers are still there. Like very much still there. We talked about this yesterday. This is a look by look at how much options cost on a strike by strike basis. And we're now looking at next week's call options. Check this out. Here are all the at the money options. And here's what happens when you get to options that are over $200 a share. You go from, the 200s have a option implied volatility of 88. By the time you get to 210, you're already at 92, and we get up into the hundreds. They are, look, you can see the YOLO here, Hannah.
Also,
clear example of YOLO you'll see.
It's also the market makers not wanting to be short units.
There's that too.
Let's check out the SpaceX chart. I would like to look for some opportunity today, whether we see it in SpaceX or otherwise. That SMH chart looked kind of interesting. Maybe we see something there. But let's break down what we're seeing so far on the movement today, if we think we might be going higher, lower, and just look at the trends over the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, let's kick it to Alicia and have her break down the 5-minute. With pitchforks. So, Alicia, can you kind of, we've got a lot of people that maybe don't exactly know what a pitchfork is. Can you give like a 90 seconds of what is a pitchfork, and then talk about what you're seeing in SpaceX today with your pitchfork?
A pitchfork just grabs pivot points, highs and lows on a chart, any time frame, 5-minute, 10-minute, and gives you a guidance. It shows you where it's been in the past. That's how you be sure your pitchfork is valid, but it gives you guidance and price targets, areas for stop loss. It's a tool to use to trade options, reading the charts. As you can see here, though, as SpaceX is moving sideways on the 5-minute, look at the relative strength index getting stronger, which is
why is that important?
That's a bullish divergence. As we're moving sideways, relative strength is trying to perk up and get stronger here. Maybe we see a double bottom. It's holding. Put your support level 178.21 there. There'll be resistance back up here, though. You can see my pitchfork lines up very well with the previous high. There'll be resistance there again at 183.05.
So if we break over 180, so here's what I wanted to ask you, because this is how I'm going to set up a 0 DTE trade. If we break above resistance at 183, and this is the kind of conversations Alicia and I have all day, folks. She'll say, hey, there's resistance 183. So then I'll
can
ask
confirm. That
Leisha,
is true.
break 183, where does it go next?
Right. Then it goes to the top this morning. That's a huge candle. 5 minutes, it dropped $9.80. That's a very thin zone. Not a lot of option or stock is traded. I should say not a lot of prices have traded in that zone. And I would use that as my next level, my next price target, 188.5.
So, folks, the way I'm going to approach this is I now have Leisha's levels, right? I'm looking for it to break over 183. If it closes over 183 on a 5-minute candle, and then the 1-minute candle is green after that. Now, remember, there's no longer pattern day trader, Hannah, which means I can zero DTE SpaceX.
Right.
If we get
as long as you have a $2,000 account, yes.
Yes, as long as I have a $2,000 account, I can trade SpaceX. So if we get over that 183 mark on a 5-minute candle, and then the next 1-minute candle. So folks, when I'm looking at my charts, I always have a 5-minute and a 1-minute open. If the 1-minute closes green, I'm then going to buy a 185, 190 call spread that expires at the end of the day. I don't know what price that would be at the time.
Yep. So you would take another shot, similar to what we did yesterday, same construction of the trade, call spread, just different prices, a little bit closer to where we are now, and using the new levels. So, at which Leisha just pinpointed. Just to sum up, she has 188 as sort of the top of that range, and right now we're around 180. Leisha, you have sort of a multitude of pitchforks laying over each other, which I know you love to do. Can you talk a little bit about where you use multiple points of validation? I think that's really important in your pitchfork trading. You'll use the way one pitchfork may look, the other one will lay over, and then also these yellow lines going east to west across your screen. Those are areas of support and resistance. Can you just walk through that? I think it's important. If you can give people just 2 or 3 levels, I know you just did, but give them again that you guys can put on your own charts that are important when you're watching SpaceX today. This would actually be valuable to you to know, if we get to this, then I should look for this next.
Right. So I created a new pitchfork because we traded outside of the previous one. I like that it's the low here, the low of the day. We're holding that. And my prices going straight across are just lining up of highs and lows. Highs and lows on the 5-minute give you a lot of information. Like I said, here's our next price target, the previous high of the day. There'll be resistance there. We bust through there and we can really trade a lot higher. Now on the downside, we begin to break down below 176.5, which is our low, very low of the day. We can expect to trade down to 173.71, and that could be a good day trade also. But it looks like we're going to get a double bottom here at the moment.
And a double bottom would signal that we're moving higher, which is why Mark would be looking at that call spread that's a little bit closer down to these prices. Mark, if you were to make a trade like that, you said that you would use 0 DTE, which would be to buy options today that expire today. That type of trade, because of rule changes that happened at the beginning of this month, opened up to a lot more people. You used to have $25,000 in your account to make more than 3 of those types of trades in a 5-day period. Now that's moved down to $2,000. So a lot more people can make this trade. What do you want to wait for now? Do you want to look at another chart? You want to check out something else going in the market? What do you think? You're driving the train. I'm just a passenger here.
I want to talk a little bit just for 1 second about that call spread construction. All right. Leisha, what did you say your call spread was? What did you say your resistance was on the upside? I remember. I just want you to know everything else. Yeah.
The first level today's high, 183.45.
Right. No, above 183, the upper resistance was 188, right?
Yes, above there we could trade 188.5.
All right. Now, currently they're pricing SpaceX options like we can move about $6-7. That's based on straddle pricing. Leish's resistance is 188. I bought the 185 call. That is inside the expected move that we can make between now and the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sold the 190. Then I'm selling the 190 call, which is going to still be YOLO'd by folks that are taking those shots because they're inexpensive. And that is outside of the expected range at this point, and it's outside of Leish's top resistance. So I'm selling a really favorable call that is trading at a massive premium to the 185 call in terms of option pricing. The same would hold true if I wanted to do it for next Friday. But if I was going to do next Friday, I'm probably not doing a 5-point vertical because of just the movement that is priced in. Between now and next Friday, they're looking for about $20 of movement. So I would be constructing a wider spread if I wanted to play up or down for next Friday.
Mark, do you want me to pop that trade in the chat? I just typed it out.
Sure.
It would be to buy the 18 June 26 185 call and sell the 18 June 26 190 call, correct?
Yes. But we need to break over that 183.45. And then you close above that 183.45 on a 5-minute candle. And then you get a 1-minute green. Now you can go long. And then you ride it up to 188, or when your trade doubles, you sell about 70. And this is the way I always trade. So if I do that call spread, I'm going to buy either 4 or 5 of them. Let's say I buy 5. I'm going to sell 3 of them up 100%. That locks in the win. And then I'm going to ride the rest toward the end of the day, as long as the momentum continues to show that it's going higher, and I'll eventually sell it when it gets up to 188. I can't take this into the actual bell because these aren't cash settled. So I don't care how much I like SpaceX or not. I don't want to wake up on Monday owning 200 shares of SpaceX that I wasn't planning. So if you do this trade, make sure you close it between before 355, 355.
So let me break this down a little bit, because we're talking about something with elevated language that needs to be made very simple. When you are trading something called 0 DTE options, which is 0 day to expirations, I buy an option today that expires today. And you'll know that because when you put in the order, it will say June 18th, which is today. You'll pick that strike. If you buy those options, you must sell them before the market closes today. Otherwise, you risk being assigned the stock. I'm seeing some questions in the chat about this for people who are very new. So if you buy a 0 DTE option today, you have to sell it today. Now, some people get freaked out about that and are like, well, that means I can't trade 0 DTE options. The reason why a lot of people get nervous about that is because they aren't sure if they'll be able to get out of the stock if they hold it towards a certain end of the day. If you are looking at SpaceX and the volumes that are trading here right now, this is a very liquid stock. These are very liquid options. So you should have no trouble getting an order filled. Now, Mark, I'm going to ask you the question that's on everyone's mind. That's a little bit uncomfortable, but I think you can answer it.
Yeah.
If I am in the room listening to you talk about this right now, and I made the trade yesterday into today, and it's down 80%, 90%, whatever. You want to take a similar approach here. If we cross this level, you want to buy a call spread. If I'm in the room and I made the trade yesterday, I'm thinking, fool me once, shame on me. But why would they want to make this trade again with you today? How do you get someone who made that trade yesterday and is looking at it and doesn't feel good about it? How do you get someone to step back in?
Well, I mean, they're 2 very different trades, right? I was trading an overnight trend that the Fed kind of pulled from us. Okay.
Yep.
This is a 0 DTE trade, not a 1 DTE. So totally different approach. And we're trading off of today's technicals. We're still using our options spreading to our advantage. And because we use the spread instead of just buying a YOLO call, yes, I am going to lose money on this trade. It happens. I win between, somewhere around the 70% of my trades I take, somewhere in that range. Which means I lose on about 30% of my trades. Now, sometimes it can be, I can lose 35%. Sometimes I go hot and I'm only losing 10% of the time. It varies. But overall, I win about 70% of every single trade I take. And the reason is because when I do a trade, I have very specific reasons for doing it. I have a very specific setup that I've learned over 25 years of just staring at these screens like this, which is what I do when I'm not on air. I'm like, that's me. We've seen on the intraday charts that when working with Leisha on these intraday charts, we've delivered some massive wins in 0DTE on SPX and in 0DTE on the individual equities. My last two 0DTE trades in SPX were 290% and 390%. And that was a combination of me constructing the trade and working with Leisha on the levels to watch.
Yeah, so it sounds like a fundamental difference is the way that you approach a 1 DTE trade is different in several ways than you might approach a 0 DTE trade. So yesterday, a 1 DTE trade is buying an option yesterday that expires today. You have 1 day to expiration. And then 0 DTE would be buying the same expiration, but doing it today when it's going to expire. Leisha, this is a big benefit of the way that you use pitchforks and candlesticks, because when you trade 0 DTE, intraday momentum is really important to understand the way the stock is pushing or pulling. So when Mark's talking about this call spread that he would put on, he was very specific about, in order to put this on, I need to break this level, which would be the 183.45. I need to see a 5-minute candle go above that. He would need to see the candle close above that. And then he would like to see the next candle even push further in that direction. It sounds like a lot of criteria, but it's really specific for a reason, because grabbing that momentum and that push is really, really important. Anything you want to add to that? Because I know you trade a lot of 0 DTE, 1 DTE options.
I would just like to add, we always want to know what the market sentiment is overall. I mean, if you can show my chart here, this is the SPX. Yesterday I was bearish. I told everyone I feel bearish. We did sell off. Today they're coming back with a vengeance, trying to recapture those gains and continue our rally. Here on the SPX chart, though, we're up against. We are not making new highs, as you can see on the 5-minute chart. Watch this level. Watch this level. Don't be fooled by the rally. SMH, yes, that's probably a different story. Just be cautious. That's all I'm saying. I have a bearish feeling and I can't shake it. So
I've got that blow up out the gate and then roll over in the afternoon feeling right now as well. Obviously, I could be wrong. I'm not trading it that way. I need to see the market start to roll over before.
Yes.
Like when we're trading up 70, I don't just start buying puts because we're up 70.
No.
I want to see it. I want to see it start to roll over. I want to see momentum start to roll over. I want to see bearish order flow into the close, and then I'm going to start playing. Hey, this could roll over. You never buy a put on a green candle. That means intraday or day to day, and you never buy a call on a red candle intraday or day to day. And
there's a good question in the chat I just want us to answer explicitly for everyone who is here. Waterproof 2 is asking if they can let yesterday's call spread expire worthless, or if people should actually close it before the end of the day today.
So what I would say is, if the stock gets above $195, then I would close it. Otherwise, you're totally fine letting that thing expire worthless. You will not be assigned those calls.
Thank you. I am going to post in the chat what we did just discuss. So it's an idea for a potential level new 0DTE call spread for today on SpaceX. Just a reminder, we would only be taking this if and only if we break over the 183.45 on a 5-minute candle and we actually hold that push. But I did put this in here. If some of you are looking for an opportunity today, just make sure that we hit that level before you actually take
Hannah,
it.
I know I didn't ask permission ahead of time, but if we do start to hit and I decide to do a 0DTE trade and people are on my VIP list, can I send this out with some instructions?
Definitely. We can definitely text this out today. Yep.
So folks, if you're not on my VIP list and that setup does happen, get it. You need to be on my VIP list because I will put out the open and I'll put out the close both ways if the trade develops. If not, then you'll be glad you're on my VIP list anyway because we send you all kinds of awesome stuff to check out. So if you haven't joined my VIP list, please do that.
We like to do the text because we get it during the day. Like you guys are busy and email's tough. So we did send the idea, but if you're not going to be watching SpaceX levels, just sign up for the text list because Mark will text you if we get to a certain point, and then you can just use it straight off your phone. So that is in the chat for you guys.
Can I just add real quick, if you are watching that SpaceX 5-minute chart, put that downtrend line in right there. It's testing it now. And then we break below, like I said, we break below the low of today. We could trade down to 173.71.
Well, that could be fun.
Yeah. Adding the weekly is going to be exciting for trading this. Obviously, we were limited yesterday in our choice for the options because all they had was today, which was fine. And I think if we looked at yesterday again, we'd make that trade 10 times out of 10 with the information that we had. But there's going to be more opportunity coming over the next couple of weeks looking at using those weeklies. Mark, can you talk a little bit? You mentioned this earlier, but I just want to reiterate for everyone here that because of the equities on January 26th that started getting 0DTE options more frequently than every week, every Friday, do you think they would ever add something like that soon for a stock like SpaceX? There's already so much volume in here. That'd be super risky. I don't know, but that's where my brain goes.
I mean, the exchanges don't care about risk. They care about volume. They want the money.
Sure.
So right. We are, I've talked to my contacts. We're going to be getting Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometime in July, they're going to add Tuesdays, and then probably a week to 2 weeks later, they're going to add Thursdays. Immediately following that, they're going to propose. No, on the 9 that already have it. All right.
Got it.
Then they're going to, the next step, they want to get that list up to 50. That is what I'm told by my sources. And when that list, and on that list of 50, SpaceX is going to be one of them because it is a top 10 volume individual equity already. When you look at the volume, it's already done 670,000 contracts this morning. Nvidia's at about 1.2. Tesla's 1.3. Microsoft is 392,000. So you can kind of see where this lands. Amazon 416. Apple only 580. So this is this is doing Mag 7 volumes already, and it doesn't have these dailies that these other names have listed. So
right.
It will be the first name they add. It'll be at the very top of their list. It's probably the most active stock right now that doesn't have dailies.
Kent said in the chat, and he's right. He said they've broken every other rule for SpaceX so far. What's to stop them now? Definitely not wrong about that. They've definitely changed a lot of the different expectations when it comes to IPOing and the rules of that IPO and when you can trade stuff. And it seems like there's a little bit of a different rule book for SpaceX. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that.
I would agree.
We have a couple more minutes. Do you guys want to look at anything else? You want to talk any more about SpaceX?
I am starting to look at some of the names around SpaceX now that the stock, and folks, leading into SpaceX, what did you see in all the major space names? Let me pull up like Lunar. LUNR.
Can you pull it up in TradingView, or here I can pull it up because it's so hard to see in that. Here, I'll do it.
I know you hate it live. I'll pull it up in. Okay. I'll pull it up in TradingView.
I hate those live vol charts. I can't see anything on there.
All right,
there we go.
So this is Lunar. All right, Intuitive Machines, and we got the idea. We knew when SpaceX was going to list, and you got this kind of massive run up into SpaceX, and then kind of as SpaceX was coming, people deleverage out of these other space names and accumulate the cash so that they can buy SpaceX. It is now trading at essentially where it was before this huge run up. And now that we've got this, now that we're actually seeing if SpaceX closes down, that means it's no longer taking the air out of the room of these other space plays. Thank you. Of these other space plays. And we may see some opportunities develop in an Intuitive Machines or an ASTS.
Do you mind? Let's pull up a couple of those other ones. I was sort of unaware of this run in Lunar. Let's look at some of the other ones too.
Here's ASTS, and they're all going to look the same. You're going to be like, if outside of price, take a look. Exact same move. ASTS,
crazy.
RKLB, little bit better, but pretty much the same. Planet Labs. I could keep going on these names. So now that EchoStar, which is SATS. This is one now that we've got SpaceX down, I think you're going to see some of the names that can win off SpaceX start to actually flourish and start to show some bullishness now that they've basically repriced themselves to where they were before this IPO.
Sure.
And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. I'm going to be adding a couple of these into my option pit small cap portfolio that we run through Special Situations Unlimited. I have one more special situation that I'm going to run in just our Special Situations portfolio around these names. And these are names that Leisha and I are going to be looking at on Fridays for potential 1DTE trades.
Sure.
Since they have weeklies. I think all of these names are going to be very interesting to trade. And, now that they've, again, repriced themselves, the upside opportunity is there again.
I just popped those 5 names in the chat for you guys. Lunar, ASTS, RKLB, PL, and SATS. Those are the 5 names Mark mentioned as kind of rode the pre-IPO wave up and are back down to normal levels now. So you have that list of those stocks to watch there.
Yeah, and the last time I traded, and I will say my timing was perfect. We did Lunar and Planet Labs in OPSC, all right, which is our option pit small cap portfolio. You have to be a member of Special Situations Unlimited. Now, I'm not always this perfect. I'm not. Believe me, my wife will tell you he's definitely not always this perfect. I could hear her in the background. So we bought Lunar on April 30th. So here is April 30th. Right there. We sold it on the 28th. Right here.
I mean, it looks like you cheated, to be honest.
It does. Planet Labs. Planet Labs, we bought on May 6th. That's here. Could have done a little better in my timing. And again, I sold out on the 28th, which is right here.
And you did that based off of you made that decision based off of the hypothesis that going into the SpaceX IPO, some of these other space names would ride the wave up.
Correct.
Do you think we might see something similar? I mean, there's some big IPOs coming up this fall. We have Anthropic likely coming. We have ChatGPT. Do you think that there are similar names that might benefit in this same way and see that kind of run up before for people here? They could grab, if they miss this run, they could grab that one instead.
Oh, 100%. And I'm already starting to accumulate some of those names. There's one name that I really, really like that I'm not going to give you guys. I'll tell you, Hannah, but I'll tell you in Slack. I'm not telling. This is one for behind the curtain. But I think there are several of those names, especially around Anthropic, that could absolutely blow higher. But again, I think there's some opportunities in space. Planet Labs is now back to where it was on May 19th before it had this massive run. So there is, I see upside in the ancillary space names along with SpaceX again. 232% in Lunar, 102% in Planet Labs. Not bad.
Very good.
All right. I got that stock list again for you guys in the chat. The idea for the potential level, if we break above that for a different call spread, a 0 DTE call spread today in SpaceX is also in the chat. I'll post one last time Mark's SMS list. If you want to see how that level and that 0 DTE trade for SpaceX develops today, if it becomes an official trade that Mark might alert, I'd make sure that you're on this list because he would text that out. And then we also give you guys a short list of 5 downstream space stocks that have made a great run into SpaceX IPO, have now sort of returned to normal pre-IPO levels, and we think it could go higher. The one thing I'll leave you guys with today, and I'd like both Mark and Leisha to comment on this, is where do you think SpaceX goes? You know, we talked a lot about today and tomorrow and yesterday. Well, tomorrow being next week. The market is closed tomorrow. If you guys didn't know, we won't actually be here tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday. But for both of you, Mark and Leisha, can you talk a little bit about where you think SpaceX is going longer term, the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year? I know it's still early, but if you have any price targets you want to share, or if you personally own SpaceX, anything like that.
I do not.
So
I don't. Go ahead.
So there's a couple things to keep in mind with SpaceX. Float is extremely low. Less than 10% of the company is available to trade. The first lockup period that ends is in August. If SpaceX over a 10-day period averages over $175 a share, then that lockup goes from 20% to 30%, meaning in August they could sell 30% of what they own instead of 20% of what they own. That will free up a lot of air. Now, that's still relatively small float compared to the amount of ownership. There'll be other lockup periods, but that early August when we hit that 30% lockup opens is going to kind of change how this one trades. Between now and then, with less than 7.5, less than 10% of the dollars floated, it's going to have these meme moments where it takes off. I think that it will, we'll probably see, now that we've gotten this initial burst, maybe a little softness into the beginning of next week. There is going to be another squeeze higher in this name between now and August. We may be here in a month, right around 178, but I think between now and then, we'll probably get a kiss of 160, 150, and probably be somewhere near 230, 250 even, because of how little SpaceX there is to actually trade. you're going to see the options continue to explode and volumes just go up and up on this thing. That's where I think it's heading. This is going to be a fun one to trade. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be all over this thing.
Leisha?
Yeah, well, I agree. Once especially with the implied vol moving around like it is, I agree. I think 150. I think it's possible that it trades down to 150, but I think that the shine, the whole aura, everything that goes around this name and this industry, all that, very, very new and just exciting. I think people love it, right? They're all over it. I do think we'll get an opportunity, though, to probably enter around 150 also. But everyone will be watching that spot, and I'm sure, I believe it'll hold there. Everyone it'll hold there. That's where the buyers are sitting.
Well, you guys heard it here first. We will continue talking about SpaceX next week on State of the Market. Garrett's live every day from 9:20 to 10. If you have not been joining him for I'd Trade That, just scroll up in the chat and read some of the comments about the content he's putting on every single morning. I think you should make sure that you set your alarm a little earlier and you're there at 9:20 for what he'll cover. He's been talking about SpaceX as well. So
yeah, and
I think
if we do end up putting on
it for us here today.
Yeah. Hannah, if we do end up getting into a trade, either bearish or bullish, and we SMS it out after State of the Market, Leisha and I will come on and talk to everybody about what happened and how that trade worked. So we'll spend a few minutes with you guys. If we do end up getting into a trade on Monday, we'll walk you through what happened, how it worked. My guess is if we do a trade, I'll be coming to an audience that is going to be extremely happy with Leisha and I. So let's keep our fingers crossed we get that move, folks.
We're sitting right here near the lows, so there could be some opportunity here.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us today. Have a great long weekend. Again, the market's closed tomorrow, but we will be back at it live on Monday morning. So we'll see you guys then. Thanks, Mark and Leisha.
Yep. Thanks, you
everyone.
guys. Queen, thank you very much. Hannah, have a great weekend. Thank you for being here for the State of the Market and our SpaceX discussion. And as always, thank you, Amin. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, guys.